Hi, it's Monday, it's 3 o'clock. Welcome to Together Unlocked, brought to you as always by Together 2012. We're an organisation led by disabled artists based in the main London 2012 Paralympic host borough of Newham. We're creating a Paralympic cultural legacy by delivering a free year round programme of arts activities led by disabled people, including our clubs programme, which we will tell you a little bit more about later, which is specifically for disabled people and whoever you want to bring with you, currently operating online and on the phone. I'm Jude Gosling, artist and artistic director. With me, where she's been locked up since last March, is our chair, the artist Julie Newman. But before we give you some further introductions and audio description from East London, we're going to go to the other end of our long virtual wheeled sofa into the West Midlands for some introduction and audio description from our co hosts.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to this week. Sorry, we were just shuffling a little bit there to try to be both in shot there. Hi, I'm Robin Surgener. I'm business director at Together 2012. And as Drew said, I am in Sutton Coldfield at the other end of a very long and, of course, very comfortable wheeled sofa. So we are in our Sutton Coldfield studio, which is lovely and warm and sunny today. Apparently, that's different to London, which is it's usually the other way around. So, what do I look like today? I am sporting, as ever, my grey white boy band hairstyle. I have my no rimmed black armed glasses on in front of my blue eyes, um, and looking slightly less dishevelled than I did as Doc Brown on Friday. For those of you who were watching, I am also wearing a blue hooded sweatshirt with, as Josh told us the other week, with a Nike SB logo on it, which stands for Nike Skateboard. But we do believe other makers of sweatshirts do make skateboard sweatshirts.
And next to you, turning around at the moment on the long wheeled sofa is.
Uh, Hi, I'm Josh Searchman. I'm the PhD student and host of Together Unlocked. Sorry, just trying to do something as well. I've got long blonde hair and I'm wearing a silver sweatshirt. That's quite reflective as well.
And for all of you who are cheering the fact that half term is over, I'm not sure that's true of the Surgeoners because Josh is back at uni, Patton is back at school. Um, and I think part of the country must have a different half term because I'll talk a bit later. I'm booked to do things every night this week as if it was half term. So, Julie, who are you? What do you look like?
I'm Julie Newman, and I'm the chair of Together. Today I wear my artist beret, mostly to cover up my hair, which is everywhere, not half as tidy as Josh's. I wear dark rimmed glasses. I've got a black and an indeterminable colour. It's a sort of grey, green, and brown checked soft shirt, and a nice moss green t-shirt underneath.
And your glasses are green as well, in fact.
If you say so.
They are. You always say they're dark coloured.
They're dark coloured.
Yeah,
It's true.
so I'm also wearing a hat. In fact, I was very amused on Saturday to go to a virtual conference where everybody was wearing a hat. They seem to be selling more hats at the moment than if we were all going out. I can't think why. But suffice it to say that underneath my black leather flat cap, I have a self styled hennaed corona crop. Apart from that, I have light olive skin, green eyes behind black plastic glasses. I've got silver coloured jewellery, black wrist braces. I'm wearing what they describe as a teddy bear hoodie. So, yes, more winter sales in purple. And underneath it, I've got a grey t shirt that has written on it as if it was in US traffic lights, don't walk, dance. And that's because this morning was our monthly Dance on Screen Club. So I will tell you a little bit more about that later. So on Friday, we left you with our recommendations, something for the weekend. Did you do any of them? What did you get up to at the weekend, guys?
Well, actually, all week I'd been running a song running, hadn't at all. I've been participating in what they'd called a Kickstarter songwriting course for a company, I guess, called the Songwriting Academy, which actually, although I'd recommended the comedy for Friday night, meant I couldn't be doing both. But yeah, so I kind of finished up that end of the course and lots of homework to do with that. And it was I mean, it was a really, really productive course. And hopefully at some point I can pass on some of the great info. They do, of course, want you to sign on for something else. Um, but at the moment, I'm kind of I think I need 6 months to consolidate all reams of information that I took from the 5 days of learning as it was.
Yeah, so tell us a bit more because I'm really interested because you've been a songwriter for we won't talk about our ages, but you've been a songwriter for a very long time. How is it different to the way you've worked before?
I think how is it different? It was, I suppose it encompassed some of what I do, but it was about looking at things from different angles. Um, I think having done it, it was very much focused on commercial songwriting, so songwriting for others, and whether or not you can sell them, sell your songs, which is something I've had a song covered in the past, um, and if I ever want to make any money, that's probably the way to do it. Uh, it, but it was really interesting in as much as it makes you want to be slower in the process, more deliberate, more planned, which is probably a good thing. And I know I've kind of got up on a Friday morning and sung you a song by Friday afternoon. And it's kind of like, well, that's great. But actually, you probably now need 3 months to go away and actually write that song properly. Um, you know, uh,
Actually, I think the ones you've done quickly, they might need a few weeks to work out exactly where to put that minor note that turns it into an earworm. But I think it's a different kind of thing. I did two talks on Friday and Saturday, and I have actually no idea who said what, but I was performing poetry as part of both talks for LGBT plus History Month. And somebody said to me, because these poems were COVID related, did I find it really cathartic? And I had to say, in fact, I haven't written a poem since the third of these covered poems last summer. And it has just been the impact of too much loss. And I think maybe just not able to go to that place. And I think a lot of people have felt the same way, whether it's about poetry, creative writing, songwriting. So it just seems to me that actually maybe more of us should be finding these courses or looking at these ways that can seem quite prescriptive in a way, but can kind of take you back and also make it perhaps even, we have a safer spaces policy together, but safer, if you like, because I think when you're writing songs, you're writing poems, there's not really much difference, is there? You can end up going quite deep. I mean, you write poems every week at the moment, Julie. What do you think?
I tend not to write poems about contemporary feelings, probably for the same reason. But I think because we do have a safer places policy, I think it's sensible if somebody wants to write something that's meaningful to them, absolutely fine. But I don't see why they should have to have my stuff imposed on them, basically.
Well, I
I
think
mean, I was
that's a
gonna,
really important point as well.
I was going to say, I think one of the things that what the course was about actually. Uh, I mean, one of the things, and again, it mirrors what we talk about. It is writing from your truth. So you want there to be some gravity, but at the same time, doing it in a way that is accessible to as many people as possible. So I know full well that I can use lots of big words and clever kind of phrases that you have to decipher to understand what I'm talking about. And it's like saying, no, don't do that. And then kind of interesting what you're saying about the songs that I did write for the show. That's exactly how I wrote them. It was about how do I say something quickly, effectively, and accessibly, as well. And then yeah, and it's that earworm, it's that hook. If you find the hook, then the song to some extent writes itself. That sounds a bit silly, but it's in there. That earworm, the phrase, the chorus line that is the one that you think is going to resonate or resonates with you. So then you then hope that that's going to resonate with others. And it's then the much more in the same way as, if we get on to talking about film, films get edited, bits are added, bits are taken out. So you embellish it, but you've got to have that kind of quality emotive product at the middle of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, while I'm talking or not talking about what I did at the weekend, because I can't exactly remember everything in every detail because I was so busy, but LGBT plus History Month, of course, continues till the end of this week. So we will continue to be flagging things up. And what I would be, yes, it would be silly of me not to flag up the fact that on Friday, the Outing the Past History Festival started. And Outing the Past is a festival organisation that's linked to Schools Out and to LGBT plus History Month, but is completely separate too. So they have events throughout the year and they have an annual conference in March, but every LGBT plus History Month, they have a festival. And I'm booked to appear at quite a lot of it. So I appeared for Norfolk Museums on Friday and for Bedford Council on Saturday. And then I think tomorrow I'm doing a Leicester Council event. Wednesday I'm at Bishopsgate Institute, and Thursday I'm at the London School of Economics library event. The reason I wanted to flag it up is all of these events are free. They're all online, they are all free. You certainly don't have to be from the LGBTQI plus community to attend. My speech is the same at every single event, but most of the other speakers change. I just seem to have been, yes, dare I say it, the most popular speaker at the festival, which is nice. It's nice to see that disabled people are finally becoming central to some of these discussions and debates. But the other thing I did at the weekend was I went to the Association of Festival Organisers conference. And that's a great conference, isn't it, Julie? Usually it takes place in the autumn in the Midlands over a weekend, and it's a really intense festival anyway. This time it was all packed into one day, and it was using a platform called Remo, which I'd never heard about. I'd only ever been to things on Zoom. But Remo allowed you to have, kind of a real life conference experience because you're all seated at tables, which you sort of see on a floor plan, and you can move tables just by clicking if there's a spare chair. And then when you're at your table for table discussions, everybody just I suppose it's a bit like a Zoom room, except you don't have to do anything, just the people on your table appear. So you switched very, very smoothly from live discussions to recorded speeches followed by live Q&As. It wasn't terribly, shall we say, cheering in terms of the outlook for live events this summer, but it was certainly very informative. The point they were trying to make was that the adult population won't be fully covered by vaccinations till October, and children still won't have been vaccinated. So the short thing is that large events are not likely to take place till next year, and when events do come back this year at whatever level, they think it's going to be 50% capacity. And whether people have been vaccinated or not, you're going to have to test them. And of course, that provoked a lot of discussion because the Association of Festival Organisers brings in the Arts Council funded festivals, the folk festivals, the local authority festivals, festivals that depend, as indeed things like the Edinburgh Film Festival, depend on a lot of volunteers. And a lot of those volunteers are retired, so they're more susceptible to COVID. So there was a concern about, well, how do we get the same number of volunteers back? But if we've got to test everybody, how do we get more volunteers to do the testing? How do we pay for the testing if something is free? Where do we put test facilities if we find that somebody's positive? What do we do? They've just wandered up. Do they just wander off again? So it was one of those times when people were sort of literally cancelling festivals through the course of the day because the key thing was insurance. And if that's the picture you're looking at, then you can't get insurance. And there were also issues around, well, if you use other people's venues, which of course ourselves and most festivals do, then you've also got that kind of thing about suppose the venue closes because they've had an outbreak. And again, seems to be pretty much impossible to get insurance. So I'm not announcing this officially, but I think it's very, very likely in the next couple of weeks, I will be saying officially that we will be having another digital festival, and I will be commissioning on an open basis again. So if you already have an idea for something you'd like to propose for the Together 21 festival, go ahead, but make sure it's possible to deliver it digitally, because yeah, I think realistically we will not. We might be doing things like the odd carnival parade, we might have exhibitions in shop windows, we certainly won't rule out having a physical presence in the London Borough of Newham. But Saturday did, I think, really clarify the discussions around live events. Did you want to add anything or ask anything before we move on?
I mean, only the other thing we did at the weekend, I'm going to make Josh come and talk about it because it's his bag, was we had a bit of a catch up.
Bit of a Marvel film sesh. Yeah, we've been watching the Disney Plus Marvel series WandaVision, which if you haven't seen it is excellent.
Bizarre.
It's very bizarre. It starts bizarre and gets more bizarre. But I'm a massive nerd, so I've watched all of the films, since the first one came out in like 2008. But for these guys that kind of haven't necessarily seen all of them, we were going through and watching the films that are probably going to be most relevant to the series. So we're watching Captain Marvel, we're watching kind of Doctor Strange, and those ones that kind of tie into the series that they haven't seen before. So when someone turns up, they're not like, "Who's that?" They're like, "Oh, that's X person from this film." But we had a great. I think we watched 2 or 3 films as well as the series.
And I think it's
So this is a really good time for me to plug our highlights and links page. You can find it in the pull down menu or linked from the main Together Unlocked TV page on our website, www.together2012.org.uk. We aim by 5 o'clock to have any kind of videos, pictures, information and links up. We haven't started watching WandaVision, but we do indeed have Disney Plus. So we're going to ask Josh to put that list of films. And that's, I guess, where we should start as well. I noticed that Disney is, I think they're putting the price up by £1 or £2 a month, and they're introducing an adult programming strand. And we were sitting there thinking, we thought it was for adults. I'm not sure where the adult programming needs actually comes from. But moving on to our weekly Monday regular thing of update thing. This is how much vocabulary I've got left after. Saturday was very, very busy, and then Sunday I was assisting our intern with her college applications. So yes, app date. I think I'm going to go straight over to you for the first app discussion, Robin.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, again, we're searching out and trying to find some new things, and I think at the moment I've exhausted my new art-based apps. But one that Tracy found actually and pointed out is an app called the Fuel Service app. And whilst I realise that a lot of us are going out a lot less at the moment, it's fingers crossed that will change over the next 18 months. And something that's always presented an issue to lots and lots of disabled drivers, but whatever, why they're a disabled driver is not really important, is actually being able to go to a petrol station and get fuel added to your vehicle and pay, for reasons. I mean, for example, our local supermarket, which is very good for price, in the last, well, during lockdown, fitted new pumps, and the pump handles were about 6 foot off the floor. So, you know, as a wheelchair user, or you've got any kind of arm movement issues, you can't even get the pump, you know, the nozzle out of the pump to put into your vehicle. So anyway, you know, and so lots of people have, you know, spent time driving around trying to find a garage which has got more than one person on staff and things like that. So what the Fuel app does is it's obviously it's linked, it's worked in with loads and loads of fuel stations. A search app for where you are, which allows you to identify fuel station local to where you are, or fuel stations locally to where you are, that have a member of staff that can come out to put the fuel in, and possibly be able to, you know, through safe means and secure means, take payment from a credit card, however that works exactly in the situation. Um, but also, it built into the app is the method of letting the garage know that you're there, because again, you know, lots of us have been there when, you know, there's a big sign that says toot your horn if you need assistance, you know, and 90 minutes later, you know, you've flattened your battery and still nobody's come out to put fuel in. So I think actually, you know, it looks like a really, really useful app that is both kind of offers safety, um, in you know, in terms of physical access, but also just taking the anxiety out of the process. If getting fuel is an issue for you, then, you know, make it as simple as you can.
I mean, I think it sounds great. You know, I have a small van and I have a minibus, and we use both of them. Well, in the past, we used both of them for work, and the minibus in particular is almost impossible for you to get in and out of. And I can't get in and out of to do the fuel. So, yes, I mean, I turned down, it really hurt me last week. I had to turn down some work in the southwest over the summer because I knew that it wouldn't be, you know, there just wouldn't be a way to be able to drive up and down to the southwest. But something like this at least takes one of those barriers out, you know, which is a really big thing, because now it's, well, if it's not safe to travel with a PA because you don't know whether they've been vaccinated or whether the vaccine is effective against that variant, then you really need to have service stations along the way that can support you. I ended up saying, which is true, there are some wonderful disabled artists in the Southwest. I will be recommending you all personally and hope one of you gets the gig. But yeah, it's nice to think that when we're back on the road, we can at least find out where to fuel up. You
Yeah.
know, or tires. I mean, I think we've had, our vans haven't been anywhere for nearly 12 months, but we've had all sorts of things replaced. You know, the batteries have gone flat, the tires have kind of developed cracks when they've been standing in the sun. I think that's the other thing. When we're all back on the road, we're going to be stopping an awful lot more than usual at garages for all sorts of things, including just forgetting, you know, how regularly you've got to fuel up. It's going to be, but I don't think I'm going to worry about having to do that very soon. However, an app that I came across that I found really, really useful is called nPrompt. And it's an app that we would call AutoCue, but the Americans would call teleprompt. So the first thing I'm going to say is there's lots of AutoCue apps out there, but just about all of them come up under a search for teleprompt. So teleprompt is what you want to search for. And essentially, if you're reading from a script, all it does is just stick that script at a speed you choose up on the screen in front of you in giant letters, and it just keeps scrolling. I found to record a 25-minute speech using paper was virtually impossible. You know, I was constantly having to move my microphone or moving the papers or getting lost in where I was in the script. I needed it to be, yeah, I needed it to stay on script for the captions and everything else. When I re-recorded it with the auto cue, that just made all of the difference. The app I used was nPrompt, and you can use it free for the first week. And I think I said this, you know, started flagging these things up last week under gaming, I think it was. It's good to try things out before you buy them. The first AutoCue teleprompt app I tried, I paid for because everything else said in-app purchases, and I just thought, no, I just need to be able to get on with this job. I need to do it. But it came up very, very narrow on the laptop screen. Whether it's actually made for phones or tablets and it just doesn't say so, I wouldn't like to guess. But it meant I'd spent, well, 12 quid is 12 quid for something that really didn't work well. Nprompt actually does cost about £23. However, if you have, for example, access to work support from Job Centre Plus because you're working professionally, then that's the kind of thing that you can get a grant for. Because, of course, for anybody who's got problems with their memory, problems with their eyesight, yeah, I mean, you simply couldn't produce a script in such big print if you're visually impaired. But the teleprompt app gives you that script in these huge letters. So yeah, I think it's kind of useful way beyond just something like live streaming or recording something. Sorry, Julie, did you want to come in?
No, it sounds great.
Okay, that was just an interesting face. I mean, I know you, because you've got more than one computer screen in front of you, Robin. When you read poems from the Pop-Up Poetry Club, and that's a good plug, isn't it? On Wednesday, we have our Pop-Up Poetry Club in the morning. We phone you. It's a phone-based group. We pay all of the charges. Yeah, we pay all of the costs. If you'd like to know more about that, I will pop up something on the bottom of the screen, but contact us at info@together2012.org.uk, and on Wednesday we will be reading the poems. But how do you find it when you're trying to read things on screen? Do you have to sort of physically set them into a bigger font, or?
Well, I've normally got them set up on the second screen, and when it's time to read it, I'll slide it across in front, because although it might seem a bit strange, although it sits in front of us in the screen, but obviously the camera is the view that you're getting of us doesn't change. And this screen enables you to make it quite big, and it's so I'm able to stretch it big enough generally that we've got, you can get an A4 size page that's quite viewable from where we are. But what I do, as I say, is I slide it across to here, which means I'm still looking, although I'm reading it, I'm at least it still looks like I'm looking into the camera and talking to the
you're
listener.
looking forwards rather than kind of off to the side.
Yeah, and of course, this is exactly what the teleprompt app does, because it's popping it up on the screen in front of you, whatever that screen looks like. You look like you're speaking straight into the camera, and what you're doing is reading the script. So that's it for App Date this week, unless anybody else has got more apps to recommend. I would just like to say, going back very briefly to the Association of Festival Organisers Conference, that I was the only person present who was able to brief everybody else on the NHS COVID-19 app, which meant that people then started incorporating it into their plans when they start events again. So for all of you who helped out with the NHS COVID-19 app pilot in Newham, whether you were in Newham or not, just giving us feedback about what you liked about apps, what you didn't like about apps, that all translated into really useful information on Saturday. And like I say, if we hadn't done it, nobody else knew anything about it. So well done to everybody who fed in. I talked about the Pop-Up Poetry Club, but what we had this morning, as it's the fourth Monday of the month, is our Dance on Screen Club, which very fortunately for us, when we set it up 4 years ago, we decided we would not make dance for live performance because there were too many access issues. We would only make dance for screen. And we later decided that people didn't want to show their faces, so they would always dance in masks. Well, fast forward to 2020, it's just the only club that we haven't actually had to adapt, apart from taking it onto Zoom. So this morning we had an experiment. I think we had about 7 of us present. We all wore a hat or a wig. I think everybody chose a hat. And we all wore a surgical mask. And we just did some really simple things. We haven't finished it, so I'm not going to show anything now, but we did in a very, very simple way, just by doing things like reaching forward with different movements. And, your hand gets much bigger I can even find our own thing, and doing different hand movements and things, and people reaching out to each other and pulling back and waving at each other. And it was just very, as always, everything we do is open to all disabled people. So I think the youngest was 20, the oldest was 74. About a third of them use wheelchairs. Some have learning difficulties. So it was just a very, very kind of simple, effective way to start making dance together on Zoom. We have, thank goodness, Spotify got the ability to choose any music we want. And what people went for today was Pharrell Williams' Happy. So again, I thought on a Monday morning to have us all waving and putting our thumbs up and things to happy music. What was completely hilarious was our club's program leader, Alison Marchant, who's very, very stylish, but looks nothing like me, had got the identical hat in white. So what can I say? Like I say, covered winter of the hats. So that was Dance Club. Now, as it happens, I now have, before we move on to talk about film and photography, as we always do on a Monday, I have a very short dance film from Hannah and Stera, who are very much regular contributors, but are also part of ACT UP Newham, who are going to be producing more things for us very, very soon on their Zoom rehearsal sessions. But this is a great example of how to do something very, very effective and very, very simple. And for anybody who's not able to see it, I will just say in advance, the majority of the screen you're going to see is black, and the dancers are wearing glow sticks. So it's the glow sticks are what you're going to see moving. So this is Hannah and Stera. And again, just like our Dance on Screen Club, you can't see, it's very much, you can't see the people, and it's very much made for the screen. So thanks, Hannah and Stera. I just thought that was so effective. Hannah said she was wearing her granddad's greatcoat, as in a very, very large, very old, and I believe quite smelly coat, and she put the glow sticks onto that. So again, you don't have to do anything terribly complicated with the costumes. I don't know how they managed to get it quite so dark, but of course they're shielding in a barn in Norfolk, which may have helped.
Can I just ask, do you remember we went to Hereward College a few years ago and saw a workshop with some of the students, and they painted themselves with this non-toxic?
Yes, I mean, yes, in more usual times, I
Yeah.
think that's exactly what they would probably have done. What you can do is, you get the paint that fluoresces under black light. So again, it can be very, very effective to have the dancers in black on a black background and put the fluorescent face paint on, and then you put the black light on and all of the faces pop out. And people have done it, they might do the whole body or they might just do their hands and face. But I thought this was such a great way of having that sort of effect without the studio and the fluorescent paint and the black light and all of the kind of things that would be usually much easier to get a hold of. That's what you can do in a barn in Norfolk.
Oh, I thought it was enchanting.
So did I. So Julie, I know you've been looking this week at the V&A photo. Is it a photo library, photo exhibitions online?
It's a catalogue. They have got, I don't even know how many tens of thousands of photographs they've got in their archive, and most of it is online. I got a tip from a relative who's an archivist, and he suggested I look at the archive because we were talking about paddle steamers of all things, as you do. So I went onto the site, and it's just amazing. You've got photographs or copies of photographs that go right back to the mid 1800s, so very, very early days of photography. They've got a wealth of categories that you can go down to the side and actually pick your own category. And under each of the categories, they've got subheadings, so you can actually sort of get what you're searching for on their search engine quite narrow in terms of the fields. I came unstuck this morning because I wanted to look up a couple of things, and the search engine was down this morning, but usually it's up. They've got 10,000, nearly 10,000 pages of photographs to look at.
So, speaking as a digital artist, my next question is, most of these photographs will be out of copyright because the photographer died more than 70 years ago, or does the V&A own the copyright?
I think they're pretty well open source. I think if you actually reference the V&A, then it's like most things. It's sort of like Wiki Commons, for example. If you reference them, then it's okay to use it. I was looking at open source stuff. It's not totally clear to me, but it's not restricted. There's no obvious restriction. Sort of looking at open source stuff, I also looked at satellite imagery, thinking, well, digital photography it's not just about looking backwards, looking forwards, or whatever.
Well, Susan, can we just stop on the V&A for a moment, though, because the V&A are due to be opening a new branch just up the road in the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. Of course, nobody's quite sure, and I think this is another of these kind of unknowns, what the schedule now is for those institutions to, because Sadler's Wells is due to have a studio there, Wayne McGregor is due to have a studio there, but the V&A are the biggest. And of course, when you look at how much income everybody's lost over the last year and continuing to lose, I think there is a real concern that this was supposed to be the kind of bedrock of the cultural legacy of the games. Newham has the lowest level of adult cultural engagement in the UK. So yes, we're very keen to make sure the V&A still arrives, but of course nobody really knows. The other thing I was just going to say is if you believe that a photograph is copyright free or open source and you're able to use it, a very straightforward way to download it is just to click on it and drag it across have your browser window open, but don't let it take up the full screen. Make sure you've got, well, in Apple we would have called it a Finder window open, or you can see your hard drive. And then all you've got to do is click on that photo in the browser, whether you use Safari, Google, Chrome, anything, and you can just literally drag it across and a copy will go straight down onto your hard drive. It really is as simple as that. You don't have to go through the browser allowing you to download something or not allowing you to download it. It is just click and drag. So I just wanted to bring that in. And now we're back in outer space now, aren't we, where you feel most comfortable for the satellites?
Well, it's not really outer space, is it? I mean, I was thinking more like the Hubble and the satellites. They're not really outer space because they're still within the
Inner space.
no, it's not, well, it could be. It's the sort of like the inner circuit, isn't it, of our atmosphere, the outer circuit of our atmosphere. But I think because there's been so much publicity about this Mars exploration, I think it's lovely to look at the pictures of Mars, but I think we can continue to look at our own world and see what's happening there.
So, for anybody who wasn't reading about it last week, the Mars, it's a robot that's just landed and is sending back photographs.
Yes, but there's three Mars explorations going on at the same time, which is a bit mind-blowing, actually.
Well, that explains some of my confusion when I saw it had landed and I thought it already had.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to agree on the satellite images of Earth though, because it they are utterly fascinating. Somewhere around our house, and I guess it will be online, is a copy of an image of the tsunami in 2004, was it? Which obviously
Maybe.
as an event, it's not a great event so, but as an image, it is absolutely incredible because it shows kind of the whole of the that part of the Indian Ocean or South China Sea, whichever it was, as if someone's just dropped a big stone in it and created a huge wave. I mean, the image is utterly unbelievable, and if you can find that image, you can just look at it and go, "Whoa."
Yeah, although I kind of feel like at the moment, with so much else in the world, I'd issue a bit of a trigger warning on that particular image. But I think that idea of looking at Earth from space is brilliant at this time. You know, it
I think
really gives you a sense of perspective. It's like looking up at the sky and looking at the stars, isn't it? And giving you that sense of, well, we may be locked down in Canning Town, but there's a whole galaxy out there.
Yeah, I think Julie's talking about the Hubble telescope and actually looking the other way. One, the idea that what you're looking at is millions, if not more, years old is slightly mind breaking when you think of it. That what you're looking at probably doesn't even exist like that anymore because it's from 40 million years ago, because that's how long it takes the light to get here. But it's probably one of the most famous Hubble images. But the Pillars of Creation photo, and I know it's artificially coloured. It's not a true image, but just I love that picture. I think that picture is incredible.
I think a link to that would be useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done, Josh.
Can I just to wind this bit up? I think one of I think it's worth considering what is the value of satellite images. Now, I mean, actually, you said something just now which is very important, Robin, which is that it's useful in being able to assist the assistance organizations during emergencies. So, yeah, absolutely, they have a real function there. Looking at global warming and the impact, the changes in the ice structures, etc. But I think as well, I think we can see things through satellite imagery that we wouldn't be able to see otherwise. So, for example, it'd be possible to go to Egypt, or at the moment, there's a European Space Agency satellite over Spain, and it's a beautiful, beautiful country.
I guess it's about marrying it up with Google Street View. I would like to flag up that our 2020 festival, Making History Together, is still online, and within that, I'm trying to work out what I was about to say that was incredibly relevant, and that's the trouble with having
Got the
walks.
Jeff Stans walks. I imagine.
Exactly. Thank you, Josh. So we have Jess Starnes virtual walks using Google Walks. They're individually fascinating. I mean, because everybody she goes on a walk with has a fascinating conversation, including you, Julie, talking about sort of integration in the American South, growing up in the 60s and going to high school, which is just mind blowing. But it actually really got me in over Christmas to just using Google Walks and Google Street View and just exploring some places. if, again, like us, you're locked down at home or you're just locked down because it's the law, what a great way of getting footage for our film poems and backdrops for electronic plays. I think that to me is a great deal of the value, which is why I talk about the click and drop. It's about being able to edit stuff into your own creative work. And particularly if, as a disabled person, a carer, or for any reason, you can't get there in real life, having this footage that's free. And all of the NASA footage is free to use, isn't it? I
Absolutely.
think you said that before.
I think anything that's got an educational basis to it, the ESA stuff, which is the Copernicus Sentinel site, is free as well because it's seen as having an educational value.
Yeah, and I don't know whether there's stock drone footage out there yet, but I'm sure it will be coming. Because again, I'd love to sort of get some sort of overhead footage, not necessarily from satellite, but some stuff that sort of comes in a bit closer. And it's all about getting different perspectives, isn't it? When actually we are all locked down tight in real life. Although, just going back very, very briefly for a minute, if you are locked down tonight and tomorrow, I just wanted to flag up a couple of events that are coming up for LGBT plus History Month that I'm not speaking at. And the first is a truly excellent event called Queer Writing for Teens, which is 7 to 8 p.m. tonight. And what it says is the last few years have seen an increase in LGBTQI plus representation in young adult books. So it's basically authors in discussion that you might be interested in, whatever your age. So these are authors AJ Sass, Alicia Doe, Bethany Rutter, Adiba Jagida, and Sasha Lawrence. And they talk about queer writing for teens, but also talking about writing if you're a bit older. From 7 to 8:30, there is Black Gay Ink coming out from lockdown. And it's artistic works that came from a project that started in October 2020. And it provided a safe online space for Black gay men to talk about personal and professional development. So they had 4 wellbeing workshops and 4 career development workshops alongside creative writing activities. So tonight they are introducing these new writers who are Awar Kashok, Bright Amponza, Colin Barrett, Jason Forrest, Janelle Roberts, Marcus Burke, Marvin Hay, and Ryan Holder. And that's an evening of new writing, music, comedy, and photography. And they'll also be promoting 2 new Zoom groups for Black gay men as well. And then tomorrow, like I say, I'm at Leicester from 6 to 9 as part of the Outing the Past Festival. Everybody else in it is absolutely wonderful. So there's somebody called Joe Somerset who's talking about a tailor in Leicester who did wonderful things. By day he made men's suits, by night he made men's ball gowns. There's also somebody called Rico Jacob Chase talking about trans lives in British history, and there's a whole Q&A. So that's tomorrow, but tonight it's very much queer writing for teens, Black Gay Ink. Those are the highlights, but there are other things going on. So as always this month on our highlights and links page, we will put up a link to the LGBT plus History Month calendar when you can find out everything that is still taking place till the end of the week. And I think, as I said before, some things are running into March and even April. So it's probably been the most successful LGBT plus History Month yet in terms of event and in terms of accessibility. Julie, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, except if it's going to be an online resource, because there's problems for me to go online at the same time as you are, so I miss out on some of these things.
I don't know, is the honest truth.
We'll have to explore that, won't we?
We'll have to have a streaming discussion afterwards. So coming up in a minute, we have our usual Monday Relax with Awa. Arwa Jagnay is another member of our associate drama company, Act Up Newham. She runs her own yoga channel, Relax with Arwa, and we jump in for the last 5 or 7 minutes or so on a Monday after she releases a new session on a Saturday. But coming up on Wednesday, as well as the Pop-Up Poetry Club, we also have Josh's weekly reports into sport and gaming. And of course, we have our Clockwork Paralympics, where we race clockwork toys to see whose teddy bear, London 2012 or Birmingham 2022, will wear the medal this week. So we'll be retiring this week's competitor. So we're going to say goodbye now to this bear, whose name I've already forgotten. We did say last week he was the saddest bear in my collection. He hadn't even been out in nearly a year of racing when every other teddy bear had been out twice. And we'll look forward to seeing what the surgeon has considered to be a teddy bear on Wednesday and whether it bears any resemblance whatsoever. Did you want to flag up anything else that's coming up, guys?
Have you got anything?
I don't think I've got anything.
Okay, I just really to kind of consolidate what you're saying about the teenagers and the writing. Having a 14-year-old in the house, I am very aware of some of the things. I'll be very quick here. But whilst I'm neither condoning or condemning anime in any way, what is obvious is that the incident or the presentation of same-sex couples and is just absolutely implicit. It's not, oh, there's a couple or anything like that. They're just in there. They're just there, and it's kind of it's so embedded in it, you know. And but for people, older people who aren't, who where it's kind of, well, blimey, there's somebody gay in EastEnders, golly, it's it's so completely the opposite end of the inclusion spectrum. They're just simply there. And then actually even I've been watching some YouTube with Emily while she's been doing a swim bench challenge, and so many people in modern pop videos dress differently.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I mean, a few years ago, I always say that because it always seems more recently than it was. But a few years ago, I was sent a bunch of young adult books to review. I can't even remember the publication, but they just come to me and said, you've got a specialist interest in children's books and you run Regard, so could you review this young adult fiction for us? And I was impressed by the range. But I was also depressed by the range because you're right, it was still very much about, oh, there's a gay kiss in Brookside. Wasn't that 30, 40 years ago? And it hasn't moved on hugely since then. So, yeah, I think it's children's young adult literature has absolutely changed. But you're right, if you really want to see representation, go and have a look at some anime, which is particularly strange given that life in Japan, if you don't conform in any shape or form, is really difficult. So clearly anime is an outlet for those different things.
Yeah.
But now I think it's time to put all of that stress aside and to say goodbye till Wednesday and relax with Arwa. So thank you again for listening. We hope you'll join us again later in the week.
So, first of all, we are today deep in and out. In and out. Now, imagine that it's the first day out of the lockdown. And you decided where to go and who you wanted to meet. Because it's the first day out of lockdown. So who are you going to meet? Are you going to meet your friends, I don't know. And you are feeling a bit nervous, but because you haven't seen anyone since the lockdown had started, so you are feeling excited over the news, and you meet wherever you want. You can meet wherever you want, or you can take them to your own world inside your head. Wherever you take them, you feel really happy. And you're not meeting with food. I'm not meeting with food. Actually, I'm not going to record by myself. That's just me. And you see people, a lot of people, beside you, behind you, in front of you, and you're very happy at this moment. You're very happy at this moment. You're not going to the west end. You're not going to the south end. You're not wherever you are going. Okay. You had the extra hour. It's in your bag. So you have the extra hour, and you introduce it in to your friends. I met this extra hour, and it kind of like my family. So you're showing the extra flower off to other people. So you take the extra flower to anywhere you like. The Western, Southern, wherever you like. You take it for a journey around London or around Surrey. You take it for a very long train ride to wherever you want to go. It's totally up to you. Now, it's a very first day outside, and you want to go everywhere you can think of. You can go everywhere, anywhere you want. So you take the trip power, and you are really, really happy. You know, it's the best day outside of the lockdown. The lockdown is completely over. No lockdown. Everyone take a deep breath in and let out. Now, I just want you to think of one place where you can go on your first day outside of lockdown. Where will you go? Will you go to Southend? Will you go to the museum? Will you go to, I don't know, Redfield? Just think of your favorite place in the world, and you really want to go there when the lockdown is over. A final deep breath in and out.